again, it's the least influential whiskey influencer on all of whiskey YouTube. So I wanted to make a really just quick, fun, little quick review on a bottle that I really appreciate. So here is the bottle itself, Glen, Scotia Double Cask. I actually was between this and I think the regular is a 10-year, and I ended up getting this just because it was 46% ABV. So it is a double cask, and those two casks are just, it says a mature American oak, so I'm assuming ex-bourbon cask, and then Pedro Jimenez sherry cask. Now, like I was saying, this is certainly not a really complex whiskey. This is very one note, but it does it really well. While it isn't very complex, it is very nice in how intense and rich it is. Now, the one note you're going to notice through this whole review is pretty much just butter. So on the nose, to me, it is obviously, like I said, intense and rich butter. But there's also this almost buttery saltiness to it. So it's really like this buttery, salty popcorn, because I am getting a little bit of the grain note there. And it's kind of enjoyable, even though it's kind of weird to get that, I feel like, out of a Scotch. Now, something that's also kind of tough to pick up on this, but I did get it when I first opened the bottle. There's an extremely mild, like burnt rubbery note here. And I think that might be the Campbelltown Funk. I'm not really sure because it's not really peat on the nose. Now on the finish it's kind of there, kind of peaty, but not as intense as what I'm used to. And I love peat. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's go to the palate first. The saltiness continues on the palate, but the saltiness is what makes it savory on the palate too, which is really nice. So it's savory, salty, it's sweet, and then that butter continues. It's a little bit of vanilla and caramel, probably from the ex-bourbon, I'm assuming ex-bourbon cask. But other than that, it's a decently full mouthfeel and it's nice. So it's not super oily, not super thick, but definitely has a little bit of heft to it. As I was saying, the very mild burnt rubbery note is still on the finish a little bit. At the end of the palate, it finally starts to change into what kind of reminds me of peat smoke, but it's just such a low level. I don't even know if this is actually peated or not. My really only complaint on this bottle is the finish is not super interesting. And what I mean by that is that very one-dimensional aspect of this whiskey kind of continues through. You just get a little bit more sweetness, but unfortunately it turns a little bit into this youthy kind of alcohol burn. Nothing that will destroy, I think it doesn't destroy this whiskey at all. It is also still mild, but it is there, so if you want to really nitpick and tear this whiskey apart, yes, that is a complaint. But just with that in mind, I still think this is for sure actually one of my favorite scotches I have, just because it is so rich and intense. And that's what it's very simple, but it tastes good, so I kind of don't care. Now, another thing to keep in mind is the price is a little bit high on this. Now, it does have to do with my location. I don't know if other parts it might be a lot cheaper to get, maybe a little bit more expensive in the US. I'm not sure. So I believe I paid about $60 for this in 2023. I personally am actually happy with that purchase. As I said, this is still one of my favorite scotches that I have. For a lower proof, really enjoyable, just not heavily peated scotch. I really, really like this. So to me, this is a must-have on the shelf. So yeah, while I think most people wouldn't dare call this complex, I don't think there's really a ton to complain about. It is just a nice, soft, but rich and heavy one-noted scotch. And I like it. I think it's great. I think it does what it sets out to do very effectively, very well. Another thought I did have, I am curious if this is something that I really like because I am such a big bourbon fan too. A lot of the notes I'm giving are less on the malty side, and they are a bit more on the sweet bourbon type notes, that buttery vanilla caramels. So, if you are a fan of Scotch, and you don't really like bourbon, go ahead. Let me know if this is something that you despise. I really don't know. Let me know if this is something that is a travesty to the Scotch world. So I just wanted to interject and kind of redo what I originally was saying about the artist. I know a bit more about them now, and I've listened to them a bit more now, so just wanted to be a bit more accurate. The suggestion is Andres. I will put up a few of the favorite songs somewhere over my shoulder. And what I really like about him is it's kind of this really cool fusion of multiple styles. He himself used to be a singer in a post-hardcore band, Terra Alive, which I still need to go listen to. And you can tell he definitely comes from the scene, just based off of who he's worked with. In fact, he's worked with Kurt Travis, and I actually found him when I went back and listened to more happy hour songs. Now, he definitely has a post-hardcore influence and background, but the songs themselves aren't they aren't really post-hardcore. But he's got a good fusion and a good mix. Some songs are kind of close to that, but for the most part, it's just nice, poppy, enjoyable music. Really cool. He's got a great voice, and I'd recommend him. So there's my quick recommendation. I'm glad I kind of redid this after listening to him a bit more and looking him up a bit more. And remember, don't subscribe.